Get your filthy rags off my daughter's silk gown before you ruin it completely, you pathetic excuse for a wolf. The sharp crack of Lady Morgana's palm against Alara's cheek echoed through the marble corridor of the Silvercrest Palace, and every head in the servants' preparation chamber turned to witness the humiliation. Alara stumbled backward, her hand flying to her burning cheek, eyes stinging with tears she refused to let fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone who already thought she was worthless. I was only trying to help steam out the wrinkles, my lady, Alara whispered, her voice barely audible over the excited chatter of the other servants preparing for tonight's lunar solstice ball. Lady Cassia asked me to— I don't care what my daughter asked you to do, Morgana hissed, her perfectly manicured fingers gripping Alara's chin with bruising force, tilting her face upward into the harsh candlelight. An Omega half-breed like you shouldn't even be touching garments meant for true-blooded wolves. You should be grateful we allow you to sleep in the stables at all. Alara's wolf whimpered inside her, that small, weak part of herself that had never fully manifested, that had marked her as defective since birth. While other wolves in the Silvercrest pack shifted fully by their 16th year, Alara remained trapped in this in-between state, too wolf to be human, too human to be accepted by wolves. Her mother had been a powerful Omega before her death, but her father, nobody knew who he was. The whispers said he'd been human, which made Alara an abomination in the eyes of traditional pack society. Mother, please, you're causing a scene. Cassia's melodious voice drifted across the chamber. Unlike her mother, Cassia had always shown Alara small kindnesses, a soft word here, a leftover pastry there. But Cassia was also the daughter of the Duke of Silvercrest's eastern territories, and she would never truly defend a half-breed servant. Not publicly. Alara has done nothing wrong. The gown is perfect. Morgana released Alara's face with a disgusted sound, turning her attention back to her daughter, who stood resplendent in midnight blue silk that seemed to capture the light of the moon itself. You're too soft on the servants, darling. It will be your downfall when you're mated to someone of proper standing. Her eyes gleamed with ambitious excitement. Perhaps even the Alpha King himself might notice you tonight. Wouldn't that be extraordinary? The very mention of Alpha King Theron made every unmated female in the chamber pause, their hearts collectively skipping a beat. Even Alara, who knew she would never be more than invisible to such a male, felt her breath catch. Theron Nightshade had assumed the throne 3 years ago after his father's death in the Border Wars, and in that short time, he'd become a legend. Devastatingly handsome with features that looked carved from granite by the moon goddess herself, a strong, defined jawline that could cut glass, intense amber eyes that glowed with his wolf's presence even in human form, and a body that was pure predatory power. Broad shoulders that seemed to span doorways, arms thick with muscle that spoke of both his warrior training and his alpha dominance, a chest and abdomen carved into distinct ridges of strength, dark hair that fell in tousled waves to his collar, always looking perfectly untamed, perfectly wild. But it wasn't just his devastating looks that made unmated females across the kingdom weak in the knees. It was his power. Raw, primal, undeniable power that radiated from him like heat from a forge. When he entered a room, every wolf, Alpha, Beta, and Omega alike, felt the weight of his dominance press against their consciousness, demanding submission, demanding respect. And he was unmated. The lunar solstice ball tonight was technically a celebration of the longest night of winter, but everyone knew its true purpose. The Alpha King was finally ready to consider potential mates. Every high-born wolf female in the kingdom would be there, dressed in their finest, hoping to catch the eye of the most powerful wolf in 5 territories. Alara would be there too, but not as a guest. She would be invisible, as always, serving drinks, clearing plates, keeping to the shadows where half-breeds belonged. Come, Cassia, we must see to your hair. Morgana swept from the chamber with her daughter in tow, leaving Alara standing alone among the scattered ribbons and discarded dress trimmings that littered the floor. The other servants quickly returned to their tasks, none meeting her eyes. Alara released a shaky breath and began cleaning up the mess, her cheek still throbbing. This was her life. This had always been her life. There was no point in dreaming of anything different. The Silver Crest Palace ballroom was a vision of winter enchantment when Alara entered through the servants' passage hours later. Thousands of ice-blue crystals hung from the vaulted ceiling, catching the light of hundreds of candles and sending prismatic reflections dancing across the marble floors. Tall windows stood open to the night despite the cold, allowing moonlight to stream in pure and silver, because tonight was sacred to wolf-kind. The longest night of winter when the moon goddess's power was at its peak. Alara wore the plain black dress all serving staff were required to wear, her long auburn hair pulled back into a severe bun at the nape of her neck. She kept her eyes downcast as she navigated through the growing crowd of elaborately dressed guests, carrying a tray of crystal glasses filled with blood wine, a traditional beverage made from rare winter berries that grew only in the northern territories. The ballroom filled quickly, the air becoming thick with expensive perfumes and the musk of powerful wolves. Alara moved like a ghost through the crowd, offering drinks, receiving orders, always keeping to the periphery. She'd become an expert at making herself invisible over the years. She was refilling her tray at one of the servant stations when the entire ballroom suddenly fell silent. The temperature in the room seemed to drop and rise simultaneously, and every wolf present felt it. That overwhelming pressure of alpha dominance that could only mean one thing. The Alpha King had arrived. Alara couldn't help herself. She turned, rising on her toes to see over the crowd, and her breath stopped in her throat. Theron Nightshade stood at the top of the grand staircase, and he was even more magnificent than the whispered descriptions had claimed. He wore all black, fitted trousers that emphasized his powerful legs, a silk shirt that stretched across his impossibly broad shoulders, and muscular chest, left partially unlaced to reveal the distinct ridges of his collarbones and the upper planes of his chest. No jacket, no formal coat, as if he couldn't be bothered with such constraints. His dark hair was tousled in that carelessly perfect way, and even from across the ballroom, Alara could see his eyes, burning amber, glowing with his wolf's presence. Pointed black ears rose from his hair, not quite human, not quite wolf, a manifestation of his power that marked him as one of the ancient bloodlines, those who could shift between forms at will, who could wear their wolf's features like a crown. As he descended the stairs with predatory grace, Alara caught the glint of claws where his nails should be, and when he smiled politely at something the Duke of Eastern Territories said, she glimpsed the sharp canines of his wolf. He was devastating. He was terrifying. He was everything an Alpha King should be, and every unmated female in the ballroom was staring at him with naked hunger in their eyes. "Stop gawking and get back to work," the head servant, Madame Cassandra, hissed in Alara's ear, making her jump. "You'll get us all in trouble with your wide eyes. A male like that isn't for the likes of you." "I know," Alara whispered, but something strange was happening in her chest. Her weak, pathetic wolf that normally cowered inside her was suddenly alert, pressing against her consciousness with an urgency she'd never felt before. She shook her head, trying to clear it. The stress of the evening was making her delusional. The ball progressed with all the elegance expected of such a prestigious event. The Alpha King danced with various high-born females, Lady Cassia among them, much to Morgana's delight, but he seemed distracted, his amber eyes constantly scanning the crowd as if searching for something, or someone. Alara performed her duties mechanically, refilling drinks, clearing plates, staying invisible. By the time midnight approached, she was exhausted. The ball would continue until dawn, but the servants were allowed brief respites in rotation. When Madame Cassandra finally indicated she could take a short break, Alara nearly wept with relief. Her feet ached in the thin slippers she'd been provided, and her head was pounding from the oppressive press of so many powerful wolves in one space. She needed air, needed quiet, needed to be away from the constant reminder of how separate she was from all of this. The palace had a conservatory on the 3rd floor, a glass-enclosed garden space that would be deserted tonight with everyone focused on the ballroom. Alara made her way there through the quiet servant corridors, her footsteps echoing on cold stone, The conservatory was blissfully empty and wonderfully quiet. Moonlight streamed through the glass panels overhead, illuminating the winter garden in shades of silver and shadow. A marble bench sat beneath a pergola wound with dormant wisteria vines, and Alara sank onto it with a grateful sigh, finally allowing herself to feel the exhaustion that had been building all day. She closed her eyes, just for a moment, just to rest them. The sounds of the distant ball were muffled here, the orchestra reduced to a faint melody, the crowd's chatter to a gentle hum. It was peaceful. It was safe. Alara didn't mean to fall asleep. She never would have chosen to, not when she only had a 20-minute break. But her body, pushed beyond its limits by Lady Morgana's demands, and the emotional toll of being constantly reminded of her inferior status, simply gave up. Her head tilted to the side, coming to rest against something warm and solid that definitely hadn't been there before. And she drifted into unconsciousness. She didn't hear the sharp intake of breath above her, didn't feel the way the male whose shoulder she'd just claimed as a pillow went utterly still, his entire body tensing with shock. Theron had come to the conservatory to escape the suffocating attention of the unmated females downstairs. As Alpha King, he understood his duty to choose a mate, to produce heirs, to secure the bloodline. But after 3 hours of vapid conversation and calculating stares, he'd needed a break. He'd been standing by the glass panels, looking out at the winter landscape, when he'd caught a scent that made his wolf surge forward with unprecedented urgency. It was subtle, almost hidden beneath the stronger scents of the palace, moonflower and night jasmine, and something uniquely, perfectly right. He'd turned to find the source and seen her. A small female in servant's black, exhausted and sad, curling up on the marble bench as if it were the most comfortable bed in the kingdom. Before he could speak, before he could even process why his wolf was suddenly clawing at his consciousness with desperate hunger, she'd tilted sideways and placed her head directly on his shoulder. He'd moved there without thinking, drawn to stand beside the bench by that intoxicating scent. And now she was sleeping against him, her soft breath warming the silk of his shirt, her auburn hair, freed from its severe bun at some point, falling in gentle waves across his arm. Theron stood frozen, afraid to breathe, afraid to move, afraid to do anything that might disturb her. His wolf was in absolute chaos, roaring with recognition and possession, and a fierce protectiveness that defied all logic. Mate, ours. No, that couldn't be right. The mate bond was rare, a gift from the moon goddess herself, and when it did occur, it was typically between wolves of similar status. An alpha king's mate should be a powerful alpha, or high-born omega, someone who could stand beside him in strength, someone who could... She sighed in her sleep, burrowing closer to his warmth, and Theron felt his carefully constructed logic shatter like glass. His free hand moved of its own accord, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face, and the moment his skin made contact with hers, the mate bond snapped into place with such force that he actually staggered. Mine, mine, mine. His wolf chanted it like a prayer, like a claim, like an absolute truth written in the stars themselves. She was his mate. This small, exhausted servant, wearing a cheap black dress and smelling faintly of kitchen herbs and hard work, she was his fated mate, the one the moon goddess had chosen for him across all the centuries and all the wolves in the kingdom. And she was sleeping on his shoulder, completely unaware that her entire life had just changed. Theron didn't know how long he stood there, watching her sleep, feeling the rightness of her presence sink into his bones. Time seemed irrelevant. The ball downstairs could continue without him. The waiting females could wait forever. Nothing mattered except this moment, this female, this gift he'd never expected to receive. He could see the exhaustion etched into her delicate features, the faint bruise on her cheekbone that made his wolf snarl with rage. Someone had hurt her. Someone had dared to hurt his mate. He would find out who. He would make them understand the consequences of such an action. But first he needed to figure out what to do. He couldn't simply wake her and announce she was his mate. The bond had snapped into place for him because of his alpha nature, but for her, especially if she was unmated and had never experienced the bond before, it would take longer to manifest. She might feel attraction, a pull toward him, but not the full, overwhelming certainty that he felt. And given her position as a servant, she would likely be terrified of him. The thought made something in his chest ache. His mate shouldn't fear him. His mate should feel safe with him, protected by him, cherished by him. A commotion from the corridor outside made the decision for him. "I'm telling you, I saw her sneak away in this direction," a sharp female voice echoed. "She's probably stealing something or sleeping when she should be working." His mate, and moon goddess, he loved even thinking those words. His mate jerked awake at the sound, confusion clouding her beautiful hazel eyes for a moment before horror dawned. She realized where she was. She realized whose shoulder she'd been sleeping on. The Alpha King's shoulder. The color drained from her face, and she scrambled backward off the bench so quickly that she nearly fell. Theron caught her automatically, his hands closing around her upper arms to steady her, and the contact made electricity shoot through them both. She gasped, and he saw awareness flicker in her eyes. Not full recognition of the bond, but definitely feeling something. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty," she stammered, trying to pull away from him, her voice breathy with panic. "I didn't mean to. I just needed to rest for a moment, and I didn't realize you were—" "What's your name?" Theron asked, his voice coming out rougher than intended. He was using every ounce of his control not to pull her against him, not to bury his face in her neck and scent her properly, not to tell everyone in the kingdom that she was his, and anyone who hurt her would face his wrath. "Ilara," she whispered. "Ilara Ashwood. I'm so sorry, Alpha King." "Please, I'll just—" The doors to the conservatory burst open, and Lady Morgana swept in with 2 palace guards behind her, her face twisted with vindictive satisfaction. Behind her, looking uncomfortable, was Lady Cassia. "There she is," Morgana declared triumphantly, pointing at Ilara. "I knew she was up to something inappropriate, sneaking away from her duties, infiltrating the private areas of the palace. Who knows what she was planning to steal?" Theron didn't release Ilara's arms. If anything, his grip tightened protectively, and he felt her trembling beneath his hands. His wolf was snarling, ears flattened, ready to tear apart anyone who threatened their mate. "Lady Morgana," Theron said, his voice dropping into the register of absolute authority that made even alphas submit. "I wasn't aware I required your assistance in patrolling the palace." Morgana paled slightly, but her ambition outweighed her sense of self-preservation. "Your Majesty, I was only trying to help. This girl is a known troublemaker. A half-breed Omega who has always been a half-breed." Theron's voice could have cut steel. His eyes began to glow brighter, his wolf pressing forward, and both guards took an involuntary step backward. And that matters why, exactly. Morgana's eyes widened. She'd clearly expected the Alpha King to thank her for exposing a servant's misbehavior, not to question her judgment. Your Majesty, she was clearly being inappropriate, sleeping when she should be working, possibly even attempting to. She was resting during her scheduled break," Theron interrupted, still not releasing Ilara, who had gone very still against him. "In a conservatory that is open to all palace residents. I fail to see the crime." "But she—" Morgana sputtered. "Perhaps what Lady Morgana means to say," Cassia interjected carefully, her eyes darting between the Alpha King's protective stance over Ilara and her mother's increasingly red face, "is that we were concerned for Ilara's well-being. She has been working very hard tonight." It was a graceful attempt to save the situation, and Theron appreciated it, even as his wolf wanted everyone to simply leave so he could talk to his mate properly. "Your concern is noted," Theron said coldly, "but unnecessary. Ilara is—" He paused, considering his next words carefully. He couldn't announce the mate bond here. Not like this. Not when she was already trembling and afraid. She is under my direct protection as of this moment. You will not touch her, speak to her, or give her orders. Is that understood?" The silence that fell was absolute. Morgana's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Cassia looked stunned. The guards simply stared. And Alara looked up at him with such shock and confusion in her hazel eyes that Theron wanted to roar at the moon goddess herself. His mate shouldn't look at him like he was an impossibility. She should know her worth. She should know she deserved every protection, every comfort, every luxury he could provide. "Your Majesty," Alara whispered, her voice so soft he almost didn't hear it. "You don't have to." "What I have to do," Theron said, finally releasing her arms, but positioning himself so he stood between her and the others, a clear barrier of protection, "is ensure every resident of my palace is treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their bloodline or status." His amber eyes fixed on Morgana with predatory intensity. I take a very dim view of those who abuse their position to torment those with less power. Morgana's face had gone from red to white. I wasn't... "Yes," Theron said softly, dangerously. "You were. And it ends now." He turned to the guards. "Escort Lady Morgana and Lady Cassia back to the ballroom. I wish to speak with Alara privately." The guards moved immediately to obey, relief evident in their expressions. They clearly wanted no part of this situation. Cassia went willingly, even shooting Alara an apologetic look. Morgana had no choice but to follow, though the look she gave Alara over her shoulder promised retribution. Theron would make sure that retribution never came. When they were alone again, the conservatory doors firmly closed, Theron finally allowed himself to breathe properly. The scent of his mate surrounded him, calling to every instinct he possessed, but he forced himself to move slowly, carefully, treating her like the precious gift she was. He turned to face her, taking in her wide eyes, her trembling hands, the way she looked like she might bolt at any second. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. "I know," Alara said, though she didn't sound certain. I don't understand. Why would you protect me? You don't even know me." "I know you're my mate. I know you're the other half of my soul. I know I would burn this kingdom to the ground before I let anyone hurt you again." But he couldn't say any of that. Not yet. "Tell me about the bruise on your cheek," Theron said instead, keeping his voice carefully neutral despite the rage building in his chest. Alara's hand flew to her face automatically, covering the mark. "It's nothing. Just a misunderstanding earlier today." "Who hit you?" The question came out harsher than he intended, his alpha power leaking through, and Alara flinched. Theron cursed internally, forcing himself to breathe, to calm his wolf. "Please," he said more softly, "tell me who hurt you." Alara bit her lip, clearly debating whether to answer. Finally, she whispered, "Lady Morgana." But she had every right to be angry. "I accidentally touched Lady Cassia's gown and—" "She had no right to put her hands on you," Theron growled, then caught himself again. "I'm sorry. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at her, at anyone who's made you believe you deserve to be treated this way." "I'm a half-breed Omega," Alara said, as if this explained everything, as if this justified years of abuse. "I don't shift properly. I'm not like other wolves." "Show me," Theron said impulsively. Alara blinked. "What?" "Show me your wolf, or whatever form she takes." Why would you want to see that?" Confusion and shame warred in her expression. She's not impressive or powerful or..." "Because she's yours," Theron said simply. "And I want to understand you." The truth was, he wanted to understand every single thing about her. Her hopes, her dreams, her fears. He wanted to know what made her smile, what made her laugh, what she looked like when she woke in the morning with sunlight on her face. He wanted to know everything, to memorize every detail, to worship every part of her. "But I want to understand you," was safer for now. Ilara hesitated for a long moment, then took a shaky breath. The air around her shimmered slightly, and Theron felt the weak pulse of her wolf's power trying to manifest. It was struggling, stuttering, like a candle flame in strong wind. When the shimmer faded, Ilara hadn't fully shifted. Instead, she stood before him in a form that was clearly painful for her, caught between human and wolf, with delicate wolf ears that drooped slightly, a tail that tucked against her legs in submission, and claws that were more like extended fingernails than true weapons. Her face remained mostly human, but her eyes held flecks of gold that spoke of her wolf's presence. She looked vulnerable and ashamed, waiting for his disgust or disappointment. Theron thought she was beautiful. "I can't shift fully," Ilara whispered, her voice tight with humiliation. "I've tried for years. This is as far as I can go. I'm broken." "You're not broken," Theron said firmly. He stepped closer, slowly, telegraphing his movements so he wouldn't startle her. When he was close enough, he reached out and gently touched one of her drooping ears. Ilara gasped at the contact, her eyes flying up to meet his, and this time the pull of the bond was stronger. He could see her feeling it, confusion and attraction, and something deeper warring in her expression. "Your wolf is beautiful," Theron said, stroking the soft fur of her ear, feeling her shiver beneath his touch. "Different doesn't mean broken. It means unique." "You're just being kind," Ilara said, but there was desperate hope in her voice, as if she wanted so badly to believe him. "I'm being honest." Theron let his own wolf rise closer to the surface, his eyes glowing brighter, his ears manifesting more distinctly, his claws extending. "Can you feel it?" "Feel what?" Ilara whispered. "The pull between us." Theron took a risk, stepping even closer until barely a breath separated them. "Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me you don't feel the connection." Ilara's breathing had quickened, her eyes locked on his. I feel something, but it doesn't make sense. You're the Alpha King. I'm nobody. You're not nobody," Theron said fiercely. "You're—" He stopped himself. It was too soon. She needed time to process, time to feel the bond deepen naturally. "You're someone who deserves better than sleeping on marble benches during your breaks. Someone who deserves to be protected and valued." Ilara was staring at him like he'd grown a second head. "Why are you saying these things? Why do you care what happens to me?" "Because you're mine. Because the moon goddess chose you for me. Because I would tear apart anyone who hurt you. Because even after knowing you for mere minutes, I know with absolute certainty that my life was incomplete before you entered it. Because I want to," Theron said instead. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was true enough. "And because I'm the Alpha King, and I can care about whoever I choose to care about." A small, slightly hysterical laugh escaped Ilara's throat. "This is insane. I fell asleep on your shoulder, and now you're— what? Taking me under your protection? That's not how the world works." "It's how my world works," Theron corrected. "And as of tonight, you're part of my world now." "I don't understand what that means." "It means," Theron said carefully, "that you're no longer a servant in the Duke's household. It means you'll have a room in the palace proper, not the servants' quarters. It means you'll be provided with appropriate clothing, education if you want it, protection always. It means you're describing a life that's impossible for someone like me," Ilara interrupted, her voice breaking slightly. "Alpha King, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this kindness is cruel. Because tomorrow you'll change your mind, or you'll realize I'm not worth the trouble, and I'll be worse off than before. They'll hate me even more for reaching above my station. No one will touch you," Theron said, his voice dropping into a growl that made Ilara's eyes widen. "I meant what I said. You're under my direct protection. Anyone who harms you will answer to me personally. But why? Alara's eyes were shining with unshed tears now. Please, I don't understand why. What do you want from me? Everything. Your heart, your trust, your love, when you're ready to give it. Your presence beside me for the rest of our lives, forever. Nothing you're not willing to give, Theron said, forcing himself to step back slightly, to give her space even though every instinct screamed at him to pull her close and never let go. I'm not going to force anything on you, Alara, but I am going to protect you, whether you understand my reasons or not. Alara searched his face for a long moment, clearly trying to find the trick, the trap, the reason this powerful alpha would care about a worthless half-breed. But Theron kept his expression open, honest, letting her see the truth in his eyes, even if she couldn't identify what that truth meant yet. Finally, she whispered, "What do I do now?" "Now," Theron said, "you come with me." He extended his hand to her, palm up, an invitation rather than a command. Alara stared at his hand like it might burn her. Then slowly, so slowly, she reached out and placed her smaller hand in his. The bond hummed with satisfaction at the contact, and Theron felt his wolf settle slightly, soothed by the touch of their mate. He closed his fingers gently around hers, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. "Where are we going?" Alara asked as he led her toward the conservatory doors. "Back to the ball," Theron said, "but not as a servant this time." "What? No, I can't." "Yes," Theron said firmly. "You can. Trust me. I don't have anything to wear. I can't go to the lunar solstice ball wearing this servant's dress." Theron paused, considering. She was right, of course. Appearing at the ball in servant's clothing would only make things worse, would invite exactly the kind of attention and cruelty he wanted to shield her from. "Then we'll fix that first," he decided. "Come with me." He led her through the palace corridors, not bothering to hide their joined hands, not caring who saw them. Several servants stopped and stared, shock evident on their faces. The Alpha King, walking hand in hand with a half-breed servant girl, was definitely going to cause gossip. Good. Let them gossip. Let them start getting used to the idea of Alara being important, being valued, being his. He brought her to the royal wing of the palace, to chambers that had been his mother's before her death and had remained largely unused since. The rooms were beautiful, all silver and moonlight colors, elegant without being ostentatious. His mother would have liked Alara, he thought. She would have understood. "Wait here," Theron instructed, guiding Alara to sit on a plush sofa. "I'm going to have something brought for you." "Your Majesty," Alara started, looking overwhelmed. "Theron," he corrected. "When we're alone, call me Theron." "I can't do that. It would be disrespectful." "It would make me happy," Theron countered. "Please, Alara, let me hear my name from your lips." Alara's breath caught, and he saw the pulse at her throat quicken. The bond was definitely affecting her now, even if she didn't understand what it was. "Theron," she whispered, testing the name, and the sound of it in her soft voice made his wolf practically purr with satisfaction. "Perfect," Theron said, rewarding her with a smile that made her blush. "Now wait here. I'll return shortly." He stepped out of the chambers and found one of his personal guards in the corridor. "Find Madame Genevieve," he ordered. "Tell her to bring a selection of formal gowns appropriate for the lunar solstice ball to the Queen's chambers immediately, and tell her they're for someone special." The guard's eyes widened, but he simply nodded and hurried away. Theron returned to the chambers to find Alara standing exactly where he'd left her, looking like she might bolt at any moment. "You look like you're planning to run," Theron observed. "I'm considering it," Alara admitted. "This is too much. You've already done too much. If I just go back to the servants' quarters now, maybe we can pretend this never happened and—" "Do you want to go back there?" Theron asked quietly. "To sleeping in the stables? To being hit by Lady Morgana? To being treated like you're worthless?" "It's what I know," Alara said, but there was no conviction in her voice. "It's safe. in its own way. This, whatever this is, it's not safe. It's terrifying. I know, Theron said, moving closer to her. Change is always terrifying. But Alara, I swear to you on my honor as Alpha King, on my wolf's soul, that I will never let harm come to you. You may not understand why I'm doing this. You may not trust it yet. But I'm asking you to give me a chance. To give yourself a chance at something better. Why me? Alara whispered, her eyes searching his face desperately. Please, just tell me why you're doing this. Are you trying to prove something? Is this some kind of political statement about treating all wolves equally? Because if it is, you should know that using me as a symbol will only— This has nothing to do with politics, Theron interrupted. This is— He hesitated, weighing his options. Part of him wanted to tell her everything, to explain the mate bond, to make her understand. But the larger part knew it was too soon, that she would think he was lying, or insane, that she wouldn't believe something so extraordinary could happen to someone like her. So he settled for a partial truth. This is about you, Alara. About how when I saw you sleeping in that conservatory, you looked so tired, so sad, and something in me demanded I protect you. About how, when I'm near you, I feel calm in a way I haven't felt since becoming king. About how you smell like moonflowers and jasmine and home. He took another step closer. About how, when you woke up and looked at me with those beautiful hazel eyes, I knew my life had just changed forever, even if I can't fully explain why. Alara was trembling, tears slipping down her cheeks. That doesn't make sense. People don't just care about strangers for no reason. There's a reason, Theron assured her. You just don't know it yet. But you will. I promise you will. Before Alara could respond, there was a soft knock at the door. Madame Genevieve entered with 3 assistants, all carrying armfuls of the most exquisite gowns Alara had ever seen. Madame Genevieve was the palace's chief seamstress and fashion coordinator, a middle-aged woman with keen eyes that missed nothing. Those eyes now moved between the Alpha King and the servant girl with obvious curiosity. Your Majesty, she said, curtsying smoothly. I brought a selection as you requested. Thank you, Theron said. Alara, Madame Genevieve will help you choose something appropriate. I'll wait outside. You don't have to, Alara started, but Theron was already moving toward the door. He paused at the threshold and looked back at her. You're safe here, I promise. And when you're ready, we'll return to the ball together. Then he was gone, leaving Alara alone with the seamstress and her assistants, all of whom were staring at her with varying degrees of shock and speculation. Well, Madame Genevieve said after a moment, her voice carefully neutral. Let's see what we have to work with, shall we? Outside in the corridor, Theron paced like a caged wolf. His beta and closest friend, Cade, found him there a few minutes later. The entire palace is buzzing with rumors, Cade said without preamble. They're saying you publicly claimed a half-breed servant girl in the conservatory, that you threatened Lady Morgana of the Eastern Territories on her behalf, that you brought her to the Queen's chambers. He paused, studying Theron's face. Please tell me you haven't lost your mind. She's my mate, Theron said simply. Cade's eyes widened. What? The servant girl, Alara. She's my mate. The bond snapped into place the moment I touched her. Moon goddess, Cade breathed. Are you certain? Absolutely certain. Theron couldn't keep the fierce satisfaction out of his voice. She doesn't know yet. The bond hasn't fully manifested for her. But she's mine, Cade. My fated mate. Cade ran a hand through his hair, processing this information. A half-breed Omega. The Council is going to lose their minds. The Council, Theron said coldly, can accept it or find themselves replaced. The Moon Goddess chose my mate. No wolf, regardless of their position, can argue with her will. True, Cade conceded, but that doesn't mean they won't try. And you know how traditional some of them are. They'll see her as weak, as inappropriate for a queen. Then they'll learn differently, Theron said with absolute conviction. Anyone who underestimates my mate will regret it. I'll make certain of that. Cade studied him for a moment, then a slow smile spread across his face. You're already completely gone for her, aren't you? You just met her tonight and you're ready to go to war for her. Without hesitation, Theron confirmed. She's been hurt, Cade, abused and neglected and made to feel worthless. And she's so strong. She's survived all of that, and she's still kind, still gentle. Can you imagine? What kind of strength that takes? What are you planning to do? Take her to the ball, Theron said. Let everyone see her on my arm. Make it clear she's under my protection. Start the process of her integration into court life. He paused, and deal with anyone who has a problem with it. Should I alert the guards to expect violence? Cade asked dryly. Wouldn't hurt, Theron admitted. Lady Morgana already looked murderous, and once the high-born females realize they've lost any chance at being queen, he shrugged, it could get interesting. Interesting is one word for it, Cade muttered. Then, more seriously, but you're happy. I can see it. You're more alive right now than I've seen you in years. She's my mate, Theron said, as if this explained everything. And for wolves, it did. Even if she doesn't know it yet, she's mine, and I'm going to spend every day proving to her that she deserves everything I can give her. The door to the chambers opened, and Madame Genevieve emerged alone. She curtsied to Theron, then said quietly, She's ready, Your Majesty. But she's fragile. Please be gentle with her. Always, Theron promised. He entered the chambers, and the breath left his lungs in a rush. Alara stood in the center of the room, and she was devastating. Madame Genevieve had dressed her in a gown of deep, forest green silk that brought out the gold flecks in her hazel eyes. The bodice was fitted, emphasizing her delicate curves, while the skirt flowed like water to the floor. Her auburn hair had been left mostly down, falling in soft waves to her waist, with just the front sections pulled back and secured with silver combs. She looked like moonlight and forests and everything wild and beautiful in the world. She looked like a queen. But more importantly, she looked terrified. I look ridiculous, don't I? Alara said, her hands twisting nervously in the silk of her skirt. I'm just a servant playing dress-up. Everyone will see right through this. Ilara, Theron said, crossing the room to stand before her. Look at me. She reluctantly raised her eyes to meet his. You are magnificent, Theron said softly, and anyone who says otherwise will answer to me personally. You keep saying things like that, Alara whispered, like you'll fight the whole world for me. But I'm not worth fighting for. I'm just... If you say you're just anything one more time, I'm going to be very frustrated, Theron interrupted. You are worth fighting for. You are worth protecting. You are worth... He stopped himself before he said too much. You are worth everything, Alara. You just can't see it yet. I don't understand you, Alara said, but there was less panic in her voice now, replaced by confusion and something that might have been cautious hope. You will, Theron promised. In time, you'll understand everything. He extended his hand to her again. But for now, will you trust me enough to walk into that ballroom on my arm? Alara stared at his hand, clearly warring with herself. Finally, she whispered, What if I embarrass you? I don't know how to act at a formal ball. I don't know the dances or the proper etiquette or... Then stay by my side, Theron said simply. I'll guide you through everything. And Alara? He waited until she met his eyes again. You could never embarrass me, but I will absolutely embarrass anyone who tries to make you feel inferior. Understood? The corner of her mouth twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. You're very intense, you're Theron. Hearing his name from her lips again sent satisfaction coursing through him. You have no idea, he said, allowing a hint of promise into his voice. Alara blushed, but placed her hand in his, and together they left the Queen's chambers. The walk through the palace corridors to the ballroom was torture for Alara. Every servant they passed stopped and stared. Some looked shocked, some awed, and a few looked resentful. Alara wanted to disappear, wanted to melt into the floor. wanted to be anywhere but here. But Theron's hand was warm and solid around hers, his presence beside her steady and strong, and somehow that made it bearable. They reached the top of the grand staircase that led down into the ballroom, and Theron paused. "Ready?" "Absolutely not," Alara said honestly. Theron's laugh was unexpected and warm. "Fair enough, but we're doing this anyway." The orchestra was in the middle of a piece, the ballroom crowded with dancing couples and conversing groups. No one was paying attention to the staircase. Then Theron began descending, and everything changed. The first person to notice was a beta male near the stairs. His eyes widened, his conversation stopped mid-sentence. Then the female he was talking to turned, saw them, and gasped. Like ripples in a pond, the awareness spread through the ballroom until the orchestra trailed off into confused silence, and every single guest was staring up at the staircase. "At the Alpha King!" And at the half-breed servant girl wearing a gown fit for a queen, her hand clasped firmly in his. Alara wanted to die. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. The weight of all those eyes, all that judgment, was crushing. But Theron didn't hesitate. He descended the stairs with absolute confidence, his grip on her hand never wavering, his posture radiating power and possession. This wasn't the walk of a king with a servant. This was the walk of a male with someone precious, someone protected, someone his. When they reached the ballroom floor, Theron stopped and turned to face the assembled crowd. His voice, when he spoke, carried throughout the space with alpha authority. "Allow me to introduce Alara Ashwood," he said, and his tone made it clear this wasn't a request. "She is under my direct protection, as of tonight. Anyone who questions this decision, or treats her with anything less than the respect she deserves, will answer to me personally." The silence that followed was absolute. Alara could feel the shock, the confusion, the anger radiating from various corners of the room. She saw Lady Morgana in the crowd, her face twisted with fury. She saw Lady Cassia, looking concerned. She saw dozens of high-born females whose hopes of becoming queen had just been shattered, their expressions ranging from heartbroken to murderous. Then she saw the members of what must be the Royal Council, older alpha males whose disapproval was written clearly on their faces. This was bad. This was going to cause so many problems. She needed to speak up, to tell everyone this was a mistake, to... "Alara," Theron said softly, pulling her attention back to him. "Dance with me." "I don't know how," she whispered. "Then I'll teach you." He led her to the center of the ballroom floor, and with a gesture, the orchestra hesitantly resumed playing. Theron drew Alara into his arms, positioning her hands properly, one on his shoulder, the other clasped in his, and then he began to move. Alara stumbled at first, but Theron's guidance was steady, his movements easy to follow. He led her through the basic steps of the formal waltz, murmuring quiet instructions when needed, catching her when she faltered. And gradually the tension in her body eased slightly, not completely. She was still acutely aware of all the eyes on them, all the whispers beginning to circulate around the ballroom. But in Theron's arms, with his amber eyes focused solely on her, the rest of the world felt a little more distant. "You're doing perfectly," Theron said, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "I'm stepping on your feet," Alara protested. "I haven't noticed." "A lie, but a kind one." "You're beautiful, Alara. Everyone in this room is staring because they can't look away from you." "They're staring because they think I've seduced the Alpha King," Alara said bitterly. "They think I'm a scheming servant trying to climb above my station." "I don't care what they think," Theron said. "And soon you won't either." "How can you be so sure?" "Because you're stronger than you know," Theron said simply. "You've survived years of abuse and neglect, and you're still kind. You're still gentle. That takes more strength than most of these so-called high-born wolves will ever possess." Before Alara could respond, a new voice cut through the ballroom. Your Majesty, might I have a word? Theron's jaw tightened, but he smoothly brought their dance to a stop. He turned, keeping Alara carefully positioned at his side, to face a tall, severe-looking alpha male with silver hair and cold blue eyes. One of the council members, Alara realized with sinking dread. "Councilman Aldrich," Theron said, his voice perfectly polite and perfectly dangerous. "This is hardly the time for official business." "Nevertheless, I feel this matter requires immediate discussion," Aldrich said. His eyes flicked to Alara dismissively. "Regarding your announcement." "My protection of Alara is not up for discussion," Theron said flatly. "With respect, Your Majesty, the Council has concerns. Your concerns are noted and dismissed," Theron interrupted. "Unless you'd like to question the Moon Goddess's will?" That brought Aldrich up short. His eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Theron said, allowing some of his power to leak through, making every wolf in the vicinity bare their necks in submission, "that my decisions regarding Alara are guided by forces beyond political consideration. Forces that every wolf is bound to respect." The implication was clear, even if Theron wasn't explicitly claiming the mate bond yet. The Moon Goddess was the highest authority in wolf culture. To suggest she had a hand in this situation was to make it nearly impossible for the Council to object without appearing to blaspheme. Aldrich's face darkened, but he bowed slightly. "Of course, Your Majesty, if the Moon Goddess has shown you a sign." "She has," Theron confirmed, and his eyes glowed brighter. "Question my judgment in this at your peril." Aldrich retreated, and Theron turned his attention back to Alara, who was staring at him with wide eyes. "What did you just do?" she whispered. "Protected you," Theron said simply, "as I promised I would." "But you implied the Moon Goddess." Alara's voice dropped even lower. "You made it sound like there was a divine reason for this. They'll expect, they'll think." "Let them think what they want," Theron said. "The truth will reveal itself in time." "What truth?" Alara demanded, frustration bleeding through her fear. "Please, Theron. You keep saying cryptic things and making promises you can't possibly keep. Just tell me what's really happening here." Theron looked at her for a long moment, weighing his options. Around them, the ball was resuming, couples dancing, conversations flowing. But they stood in their own bubble of intensity. "Come with me," Theron decided. "Somewhere we can talk properly." He led her from the ballroom, ignoring the curious stares, and this time he brought her to his own private study, a room he rarely allowed anyone to enter. It was a comfortable space, lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large desk carved from dark wood. A fire crackled in the hearth, filling the room with warmth. Theron closed the door and turned to face Alara, who stood in the center of the room, looking like she might shatter at any moment. "Sit," Theron said gently, gesturing to a comfortable chair near the fire. "Please." Alara sat, and Theron took the chair opposite her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, his eyes never leaving her face. "What I'm about to tell you," Theron began, "may be difficult to believe. But I swear on my wolf's soul that it's the truth." "You're scaring me," Alara whispered. "Don't be scared," Theron said. "If anything, this should make you feel safe, protected, cherished." "Then tell me." Theron took a deep breath, then said the words that would change everything. "You're my mate, Alara, my fated mate, chosen by the Moon Goddess herself." Alara stared at him. The silence stretched out for several heartbeats. Then, "That's not possible." "It is. It's true." "No." Alara shook her head, standing abruptly. "No, that's not. I'm a half-breed. The Moon Goddess doesn't choose mates like me for kings. That's not how it works. The Moon Goddess chooses who she chooses," Theron said, standing as well but making no move to approach her. "Status doesn't matter to her. Bloodline doesn't matter. She sees souls, Alara, and she chose your soul for mine." "You're lying," Alara said. but there was no conviction in her voice. Or you're confused. Maybe you felt attraction, or curiosity, or pity. But it's not the mate bond. It can't be. When I touched you in the conservatory, the bond snapped into place immediately, Theron said. It was like being struck by lightning. Every instinct I have was suddenly screaming that you were mine, that I needed to protect you, that I would burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you. He took a step closer. You feel it too, even if you don't understand what it is yet. I know you do. That pull when we touch. That sense of rightness when we're close. Alara's hand went to her chest, pressing against her heart. I feel something, but that doesn't mean it means everything, Theron said intensely. The bond manifests differently depending on the wolf. For alphas, especially alpha kings, it's immediate and overwhelming. For omegas, particularly those who've never experienced a bond before, it develops more gradually. But it's there, Alara, and it will continue to grow until you feel it as strongly as I do. This is insane, Alara said, but tears were streaming down her face now. Things like this don't happen to people like me. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. Why would the moon goddess? You are not nothing, Theron growled, his alpha power flaring, and Alara gasped as the force of it washed over her. I'm going to keep saying that until you believe it. You are precious. You are valuable. You are worthy of every good thing in this world. Even if this is true, Alara said desperately, even if by some miracle you're right about the mate bond, I can't be a queen. I don't know how to be a queen. I'll fail. I'll embarrass you. The court will never accept me. You'll learn, Theron said, and I'll be beside you every step of the way. As for the court, they'll accept you or they'll leave. It's that simple. You can't just dismiss your entire council because of me. I'm the Alpha King, Theron said. I can do whatever I want, and what I want is you. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning and promise. Alara stared at him, her expression a mixture of wonder and terror and desperate hope. I don't know how to process this, she finally whispered. You don't have to process it all at once, Theron said, finally allowing himself to approach her. He stopped just in front of her, close enough to touch but giving her space to refuse. We can take this as slowly as you need. I won't push you into anything you're not ready for. But you already announced me to the entire court. You already made it clear I'm important to you. How is that not pushing? Would you rather I had left you to Lady Morgana's mercy? Theron asked. Let you return to the servants' quarters where you'd be punished for falling asleep on my shoulder? Because that was the alternative. Alara closed her eyes. No, I don't want to go back there. Then stay here, Theron said softly. Let me protect you. Let me show you what it means to be valued. And if the mate bond develops for you the way I know it will, then we'll deal with that together. And if it doesn't, Alara challenged, what if I never feel what you feel? The question was like a knife to Theron's heart, but he forced himself to answer honestly. Then I'll still protect you. I'll still care for you. The mate bond isn't a choice. I'm yours regardless of whether you want me or not. But I won't force you into a relationship you don't want. That's not fair to you. Let me worry about what's fair to me, Theron said. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently cupped her face in his large hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. Right now, I just want you to be safe. Can you give me that? Can you let me keep you safe? Alara leaned into his touch almost involuntarily, her eyes fluttering closed. When she opened them again, they were filled with tears, but also with determination. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll stay. I'll let you protect me. But Theron, I need you to understand. I'm terrified. I'm terrified of this. Of you. Of what people will say and do. I'm terrified of failing you. You could never fail me, Theron said fiercely. Never. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her, and felt her melt against him with a soft sob. You're safe now, Alara. I swear it on my life, on my crown, on everything I am. You're safe." They stood like that for a long moment, Alara crying into Theron's chest, while he held her and murmured reassurances. Finally, she pulled back slightly, looking up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Theron said, "you get some rest. It's been an overwhelming night. Tomorrow we'll start figuring out your new life. I'll assign you rooms in the royal wing, arrange for appropriate clothing, assign you a personal guard. A guard. Is that necessary? Until everyone understands that harming you means facing my wrath. Yes," Theron said firmly. "I'm not taking chances with your safety." Alara looked like she wanted to argue but was too exhausted. Okay, whatever you think is best." "What I think is best is for you to get some sleep," Theron said. He wanted desperately to keep her here, in his rooms, where he could watch over her personally. But that would be pushing too far too fast. "I'll have someone show you to the Queen's chambers. You'll stay there for now." "The Queen's chambers?" Alara's eyes widened. "But those are the most secure rooms in the palace after my own," Theron said. "And where you belong." He walked her to the door and opened it to find Cade waiting in the corridor, along with a middle-aged female guard with kind eyes. "This is Commander Lissa," Theron said. "She's the captain of my personal guard, and one of the most skilled warriors in the kingdom. She'll be assigned to your protection detail." Lissa bowed to Alara with genuine respect. "It's an honor, Miss Ashwood." Thank you," Alara said, clearly overwhelmed. "Lissa will show you to your chambers," Theron said, "and she'll remain outside your door tonight. If you need anything at all, you tell her, and it will be provided." "Okay," Alara said softly. She looked up at Theron, her expression vulnerable. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "You'll see me every day," Theron promised. "I'll come find you after breakfast. We have a lot to discuss." Alara nodded, then turned to follow Lissa down the corridor. She looked back once, her hazel eyes finding his, and Theron felt the mate bond pulse with longing. When she was gone, Cade whistled low. "Well, that was quite a night." "That's putting it mildly," Theron agreed. He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the evening. "The council is going to be in an uproar." "Let them be," Cade said. "You're right. The moon goddess's choice can't be argued with. Once you formally announce the mate bond—" "Not yet," Theron said quickly. "She's not ready. She barely believes it herself. If I make a formal announcement now, it will terrify her. But the longer you wait, the more the court will speculate about your relationship," Cade pointed out. "They'll make assumptions, spread rumors. Some will be cruel." "I know," Theron said grimly. "But I won't push her before she's ready. We'll deal with the rumors as they come." Cade studied him for a moment, then smiled. "You really are completely gone for her, aren't you?" "She's my mate," Theron said simply. "My other half. The part of me I didn't know was missing until I found her." He looked down the empty corridor where Alara had disappeared. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure she knows how precious she is." The next morning, Alara woke in the most comfortable bed she'd ever experienced, momentarily confused about where she was. Then the events of the previous night came rushing back, and she sat up with a gasp. The Queen's chambers, the Alpha King, the mate bond claim. It had really happened. It wasn't a dream. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating a room decorated in silver and soft blue. The bed she lay in was massive, covered in silk sheets that felt like clouds against her skin. A wardrobe stood against one wall, and when Alara opened it, she found it filled with beautiful dresses in various styles and colors. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Miss Ashwood? It's Commander Lissa. The Alpha King asked me to check if you needed anything." Alara opened the door to find the female guard looking alert and professional. I'm fine. Thank you." "There's a bathing room through that door," Lissa said, pointing. "And I've arranged for breakfast to be brought up if you'd prefer privacy, or I can escort you to the dining hall if you'd rather eat there." Privacy, please, Alara said quickly. The thought of facing the court this morning was too much. Of course. Lissa's expression softened slightly. If I may say, Miss Ashwood, the Alpha King's protection is not given lightly. You're safe here. Thank you, Alara whispered, surprised by the kindness. After Lissa left to arrange breakfast, Alara explored the bathing room and found a large copper tub that someone had already filled with steaming water. Rose petals floated on the surface, and soft towels were stacked nearby. Alara bathed quickly, unused to such luxury, then dressed in one of the simpler dresses from the wardrobe, a soft green day dress that was still nicer than anything she'd ever worn. She was attempting to do something with her wet hair when breakfast arrived, carried by a young servant who looked at her with wide, curious eyes. Thank you, Alara said, taking the tray. The girl curtsied and hurried away, clearly eager to report back to the other servants about the mysterious half-breed in the Queen's chambers. Alara was picking at her food. She was too nervous to really eat, when another knock sounded. Before she could respond, the door opened and Theron entered, his eyes immediately finding her. In the daylight, he was even more devastatingly handsome than she remembered. He wore more casual clothing today, dark trousers and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal his muscular forearms. His dark hair was slightly damp, as if he'd recently bathed, and his amber eyes were warm as they looked at her. Good morning, Theron said softly. Did you sleep well? Yes, Alara admitted. Better than I have in years, actually. Good. Theron moved closer, and Alara felt that pull again. That strange magnetism that made her want to move toward him, even though every logical part of her brain said to keep her distance. I wanted to talk to you about what happens next. Okay, Alara said nervously. Theron pulled a chair closer to where she sat and settled into it, his large frame somehow making the furniture look delicate. First, I want to address the practical matters. You'll remain in these chambers for now. Commander Lissa will be your primary guard, though there will be others on rotation. You'll have access to the palace library, the gardens, anywhere you want to go. You're not a prisoner here. Okay, Alara said again, trying to process. Second, you'll need education in court protocols, history, politics, everything you'll need to function in this world. I'll arrange for tutors. To function as what, exactly? Alara asked. You keep talking about my role here, but I don't actually understand what you expect from me. Theron was quiet for a moment, clearly choosing his words carefully. Right now, I expect nothing from you except to let me protect you and care for you. As for the future, he paused. The mate bond is sacred, Alara. When it manifests fully for you, when you feel what I feel, we'll discuss what that means. You mean marriage, Alara said bluntly. You mean making me queen. Eventually, yes, Theron admitted. But not until you're ready. Not until you want it. And if I never want it? Pain flashed across Theron's face, but he kept his voice steady. Then we'll figure something else out. But, Alara, I need you to understand. Whether or not we formalize our bond, you're mine to protect. That won't change. Yours to protect, Alara repeated. Like property? Like a mate, Theron corrected. Like the other half of my soul. Like someone I would die for without hesitation. The intensity in his eyes made Alara's breath catch. She'd never seen anyone look at her like that. Like she was precious. Like she mattered. Like she was worth everything. I don't understand how you can feel that way about someone you just met, Alara whispered. The mate bond doesn't develop gradually for the one who receives it first, Theron explained. It's immediate and absolute. I didn't choose to feel this way, Alara. The moon goddess chose it for me. For us. He leaned forward. But that doesn't make it any less real. Before Alara could respond, shouting erupted from somewhere in the palace, followed by the sound of running feet. Theron was on his feet immediately, positioning himself between Alara and the door, his entire body tense with readiness. The door burst open and Cade entered quickly. Your Majesty, we have a situation. What kind of situation? Theron demanded. Lady Morgana has filed a formal complaint with the Council, claiming you've been ensorcelled by dark magic. She's demanding you submit to testing by the court healers, and she's brought 2 other council members to support her claim. Theron's eyes flashed amber, his wolf rising to the surface. Is she insane? Possibly, Cade said grimly. But she's also clever. By framing this as concern for your well-being, rather than objection to Alara, she's made it difficult to refuse without appearing to have something to hide. What does this mean? Alara asked, fear creeping into her voice. Theron turned to her, his expression fierce, but not directed at her. It means Lady Morgana is attempting to undermine my claim of protection over you by suggesting I'm not in my right mind. His hands clenched into fists. I should have her thrown in the dungeons for this. That would only make things worse, Cade said. It would look like you're trying to silence legitimate concerns. Your Majesty, I think you need to submit to the testing. Absolutely not, Theron growled. I won't dignify this with— Please, Alara interrupted. Both males turned to look at her. Please, just do the testing. If you refuse, people will always wonder. But if you do it, and prove there's no magic influencing you, then Lady Morgana looks like the fool she is. Theron stared at her for a long moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face. You're brilliant, you know that? Alara blushed. I'm just practical. No, you're brilliant, Theron insisted. And you're right. Fine. Tell the council I'll submit to their testing. His eyes grew cold. But when it comes back negative, as we all know it will, I want Lady Morgana formally sanctioned for wasting the court's time with baseless accusations. I'll make the arrangements, Cade said, then left quickly. Theron turned back to Alara, his expression softening. I'm sorry. I know this situation is already overwhelming without adding political drama. It's not your fault, Alara said. Lady Morgana hates me. She has for years. Why? Theron asked, moving closer to her. What did you ever do to her? I existed, Alara said simply. Half-breeds are an insult to traditional wolves. We're reminders that the bloodlines aren't as pure as they like to pretend. She looked down at her hands. And maybe she saw something in me she didn't like. Some spark of hope or pride that needed to be beaten out. The sound that came from Theron's throat was purely wolf, a growl of such rage that Alara actually stepped back. His eyes were fully amber now, glowing with his wolf's fury, and his claws had extended. Theron, Alara said carefully, you need to calm down. She beat you, Theron said, his voice distorted by his wolf's presence. She systematically tried to destroy your spirit. And now she has the audacity to file complaints about me? His power filled the room, pressing against Alara's consciousness, but even through her fear, she realized it wasn't directed at her. He was struggling to control his rage, not threatening her. Theron, Alara said more firmly, and she did something that surprised herself. She reached out and took his hand, threading her fingers through his despite the dangerous claws. Please, I need you calm. I need you thinking clearly, not reacting with anger. The touch seemed to help. Theron's breathing slowed, his eyes gradually returning to their normal amber, his claws retracting. When he finally looked at her again, there was wonder in his expression. You touched me, he said softly. Even when my wolf was surfacing, even when most wolves would have been terrified, you touched me. I wasn't scared of you, Alara realized. I was scared for you. I didn't want you to do something you'd regret. The mate bond, Theron said, his voice full of satisfaction. It's growing stronger for you, even if you don't consciously recognize it yet. You're not afraid of me because some part of you knows I'd never hurt you. Alara pulled her hand back, overwhelmed. That's not, maybe I just— It's okay, Theron said gently. You don't have to analyze it or explain it. Just know that I'm grateful. For your concern, for your touch, for you. The testing took place that afternoon in the council chambers, with Alara insisting on being present despite Theron's protests. If they're going to accuse you of being ensorcelled because of me, then I should be there, she'd argued, and eventually Theron had agreed. though he'd positioned Commander Lissa and 2 additional guards around her as protection. The court healers were 3 ancient wolves, 2 males and 1 female, who specialized in detecting magical influences. They examined Theron thoroughly, testing his blood, his aura, his mental state. The process took nearly 2 hours, during which Lady Morgana sat with a smug expression, while other council members watched with varying degrees of interest or disapproval. Finally, the head healer turned to face the assembled council. "Our examination is complete," she announced in a creaky voice. "There is no trace of dark magic, ensorcelment, or any other magical influence on Alpha King Theron. His mind is clear, his will is his own, and his decisions are made with full cognitive function." The satisfaction Alara felt at Lady Morgana's expression shifting from smug to shocked was probably petty, but she didn't care. "Furthermore," the healer continued, and her ancient eyes fixed on Theron with knowing intensity, "we have detected the presence of a mate bond, newly formed, but genuine and strong." Gasps erupted throughout the chamber. Theron went very still beside Alara. "A mate bond?" Councilman Aldrich demanded. "With whom?" The healer's eyes shifted to Alara, and suddenly every gaze in the room followed. "With the young woman who has been causing such controversy. The bond emanates from the Alpha King clearly, reaching toward her. It has not fully manifested on her end yet, but it will in time." "This is impossible," Lady Morgana said, her voice shrill. "She's a half-breed. The moon goddess wouldn't." "The moon goddess chooses what she chooses," the healer interrupted sharply, "and no wolf, regardless of their status, may question her wisdom." She turned to Theron and bowed deeply. "Congratulations, Your Majesty, on finding your fated mate. May the moon goddess bless your union." The formal acknowledgement of the mate bond changed everything. Council members who had been preparing to object to Alara's presence suddenly found themselves forced to accept it or risk blasphemy. Lady Morgana looked like she might be sick, and Theron looked triumphant. He stood and extended his hand to Alara. "Come," he said. "I think we've had enough politics for one day." Alara took his hand and let him lead her from the council chambers, acutely aware of all the eyes following them. When they reached the privacy of the corridor, Theron pulled her into an empty alcove and just held her, his face buried in her hair. "I know the public announcement wasn't how you wanted to find out for certain," Theron said softly. "I'm sorry." "It's okay," Alara said, and realized she meant it. "At least now I know you weren't lying or confused. The mate bond is real." "It's real," Theron confirmed, "and now the entire court knows it." He pulled back to look at her. "This is going to make things more complicated for you. The expectations, the pressure." "I know," Alara said, "but at least now I understand why you're doing all this. Why you're so determined to protect me." She paused. "It's not just because you're kind. It's because I'm your mate." "It's both," Theron said firmly. "Even if there was no mate bond, I would still think you deserved better than how you've been treated. But yes, the bond makes it more intense, more urgent, more absolutely everything." Alara looked up at him, this devastatingly handsome Alpha King who had somehow become her fated mate, and felt something shift in her chest. Not the full force of the mate bond yet, but something. A warmth. A pull. A sense of rightness that was growing stronger every time they touched. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Theron said, "we take this one day at a time. You learn what you need to learn. You grow comfortable in your new role, and we let the mate bond develop naturally for you." He cupped her face gently. "No pressure, no rushing. Just us." "Us," Alara repeated, testing the word. It felt strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. "Us," Theron confirmed with a smile that made her heart flutter. And for the first time since this impossible situation began, Alara let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything might actually be okay. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change for Alara. True to his word, Theron arranged for tutors to teach her everything she needed to know about court life. History, politics, proper etiquette. even dance lessons to improve beyond their awkward first waltz. Commander Lissa remained her constant shadow, but Alara found the female guard's presence comforting rather than restrictive. The court's reaction to her was mixed. Some wolves, particularly those who valued tradition above all else, remained coldly distant. Others, seeing which way the wind was blowing, began showing her respect and courtesy. And a few, like Lady Cassia, surprisingly, offered genuine friendship. "I'm sorry about my mother," Cassia had said during a private tea meeting Alara had nervously accepted. "She's always been ambitious and traditional in the worst ways. What she did to you over the years, it was wrong." "It's not your fault," Alara had replied, though she appreciated the apology. But the biggest change was in Alara herself. The mate bond was definitely growing stronger. She felt it in the way her heart raced when Theron entered a room, in the way she unconsciously sought out his presence during court functions, in the way his touch brought her comfort and peace like nothing else in the world, and in the way she was starting to imagine a future she'd never dared dream of before. 3 weeks after the night she fell asleep on his shoulder, Theron invited Alara to walk with him in the palace gardens. It was evening, the sun setting in shades of gold and pink, and they were alone, except for Lissa keeping a discreet distance. "You've been doing wonderfully," Theron said as they strolled along a path lined with winter roses. "Your tutors say you're a remarkably quick study." "I'm trying," Alara said, "though sometimes I still feel completely out of my depth." "That's normal," Theron assured her. "Even highborn wolves struggle with court politics." He paused beside a fountain, turning to face her. "Alara, I need to ask you something." The serious tone in his voice made her nervous. "Okay. How are you feeling about everything? About the mate bond? About us?" Alara took a breath, trying to organize her thoughts. "I feel it now, the bond. Not as strongly as you do, I think, but it's there. Sometimes when we're apart, I miss you. When we're together, I feel settled, complete." Theron's expression was pure joy. "Really?" "Really," Alara confirmed, feeling brave. "I think I'm ready to accept this, to accept us." "Ilara," Theron breathed, stepping closer. "Are you sure? Because once you formally accept the mate bond—" "I'm sure," Alara interrupted. "Theron, you've spent weeks proving to me that I'm valued, that I'm worthy, that I deserve good things. And somewhere along the way, I started believing you." She reached up to touch his face, marveling at how natural the gesture felt. "You're a good male, a good alpha, and the moon goddess knew what she was doing when she chose you for me." "I love you," Theron said, the words tumbling out like he couldn't hold them back anymore. "I've loved you since the moment you fell asleep on my shoulder. So tired and sad and beautiful. I'll love you until my last breath and beyond." "I love you too," Alara whispered, realizing it was true. Somewhere between fear and confusion, and gradual acceptance, she'd fallen completely in love with her fated mate. Theron kissed her then, soft and reverent, and Alara felt the mate bond snap fully into place with an almost audible click. It was like coming home, like finding a piece of herself she hadn't known was missing. Like everything in her life had been leading to this moment, this male, this love. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Theron rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said. "Not because you have to, not because of duty or obligation, but because you want to. Because you love me like I love you." "Yes," Alara said without hesitation. "Yes, I'll marry you." Theron's whoop of joy echoed through the gardens, and he picked Alara up and spun her around, both of them laughing. When he set her down, his eyes were glowing with happiness, and his wolf was definitely present in his broad smile. "I'm going to make you so happy," Theron promised. "I'm going to spend every day showing you how precious you are." "You already make me happy," Alara said. "You already do show me. And I'm going to spend every day being worthy of you." "You're already worthy," Theron said firmly. You've always been worthy. The whole world was just too blind to see it. They stood in the garden as darkness fell, wrapped in each other's arms, while Commander Lissa discreetly gave them privacy. And Alara thought about the strange journey that had brought her here, from a half-breed servant sleeping on a marble bench to a future queen in the arms of her fated mate. All because she'd fallen asleep on the Alpha King's shoulders. And what he did next hadn't shocked her. It had changed her entire life. For the better. Forever. The end.